So when you started this, and this was based on the book that Ron had written, which was published, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
So did you get an option on the book before it was published, or when he was telling you about it?
Yeah, so Ron had been telling me about this story for a long time. I when he was done with the book, when it was in sort of he sent me the galleys and he said, I think this would make a great film. I read the book and I was just immediately blown away. I optioned it right away for the documentary rights, and then a month later I was at Riverview filming. My first shoot was the Valentine's Day dance, and it was Owen and Emily, and they were so in love and they were so physical, and I was just like so surprised, and that sort of started the journey.
But I would imagine, because the movie follows him in this really pivotal time in his life, getting out of school and on his own, which was not the book. So did you change once you got and started filming?
Yeah, it was really important to me that it wasn't just a retelling of the book, which is all in the past. So I picked up where the book left off. And so Owen was about to go through this really transformative year in his life where he was about to graduate.
Now he was graduating from college?
From college, from a special school for people with autism. But he was about to graduate from college. He was about to become independent and move in on his own. And he had fallen in love. And I thought, for me, it was never a film about autism. It was a coming-of-age story about a young man. And so it was all these universal points. I was going to hit all these universal beats. Everyone graduates. Everyone falls in love. Everyone has their first heartbreak. All those beats that are universal that we can all connect to, because it was all about, humanizing Owen. It was all about really showing the world from Owen's point of view. The whole film is to really show from the inside looking out, not from the outside looking in. Most films about people with disabilities, and I've made one, is really about the outside looking in. And this was about you bringing the audience into Owen's world, deep into Owen's mind, and experiencing the world through his eyes, so that by the end of the film, you really know exactly who he is and how he sees the world. In the beginning, when you see him sort of pacing and self-talking, you're a little uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable when I first started filming. But as you get to know Owen and as you realize there's this rich, beautiful world that he's created for himself, and that this is someone who grew up on a diet of myth and fable. These Disney stories are really classic fables that have been told for thousands of years. Disney just, updates them and rips them off. And those stories are what we need to make us human. That's how we connect with each other, is through myth and fable and story. So Owen grew up on a diet of this, and it makes him really wise. It makes him an expert on what it means to be human. So he taught me so much about filmmaking, and he taught me so much as a person.
Well, how about, you were saying he taught you a lot about filmmaking. How did he teach you about filmmaking?
Well, so the hero's journey. Owen is an expert on sort of the hero's journey, and I realized that Owen was taking his own hero's journey. And I had to sort of figure out, how am I going to tell this? I'm working with someone who is autistic, I can't necessarily sit down and ask questions. So I came up with various devices. I used an Interatron, which is a camera that was invented by Errol Morris. And it's a camera, it's basically sort of like a teleprompter setup.
Okay.
And the camera, so you're looking directly into the lens of the subject, is looking at a screen, and he's looking directly into the lens of the camera. And so Owen spent his life looking at a television screen. So when he looks at me, I'm in the other room, he's looking at me on a screen, and he can then look at me and totally look me in the eye and totally engage with me.
Wow.
And that's how I was able to and he's the only one in the film that looks directly at the audience. So you immediately have this connection. So then I had this little clicker, and I would ask him a couple questions, and then I would click and show him a Disney clip on the screen. So Owen is interacting with the Disney clip, and the audience is, in a sense, inside the Disney clip, and in a sense, inside his head.
I felt watching this movie that he knows more about emotions and what you need what makes your heart work and the emotions and what is good and bad in the world than most people who are considered, not typical. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Owen is so wise. It's so wise. And as we've been going around to festivals and doing interviews with the press, we were doing an interview with the LA Times, and Owen walks in the room, and the reporter's sitting there, and he says, and she's like, "Owen, it's so nice to meet you. You're so famous." And he's like, I'm not a celebrity. Celebrities are out for themselves, and I'm just someone who's being celebrated this year.
Oh.
Which I thought was so amazing. Just came out. His parents were like, "What? Where'd that come from?"
And I was reading, too, that a lot of the doctors, they wanted to take away everything that he loved.
Yeah.
Because they said, now why did they want it? Because they said that wasn't going to help him? Or...
Yeah. Well, I would say this is as much a film as it is a film about the power of story, a coming-of-age story. It's also a film about, parenting.
Right.
And it's a film about love. And they loved him, that they were going to find any way they could to connect to their son. And so what the doctors told them was that you shouldn't encourage a child with autism's affinity. They call it an affinity. You shouldn't encourage that. You should use that as sort of a reward, and you should restrict that. And that was the thinking. And but they didn't. They did just the opposite, because they realized it was an avenue to get to their son and connect with him. And because of that, they've sort of started a whole new movement in the autism community and autism world called affinity therapy. And the conference at the end of the film, the conference that Owen goes to in Paris and makes the speech, is the first conference in the world on affinity therapy because of the book. Because of the sus guidance.
How did you get the clips? I mean, did you and your producer have to go and say and present a treatment and
exactly? So Sean Bailey, who's the president of Disney Productions, sort of helped us. He's on the board of trustees at Sundance, and Carrie Putnam at Sundance introduced us, and we had to go, and there was all the heads of all the different departments of Disney. So it was head of Disney marketing and legal and animation, and I had clips. I had Disney Club clips. I had shot graduation. I had graduation clips, and sort of photos and home movies. And I had these index cards, and I was shaking, and I had to go take them on a journey through the film. And I was a nervous wreck. I didn't think I would get through it, and because so much was at stake for the film and for us.
Right, because if you couldn't show the clips,
so I was shaking, and and by the time the lights came up, they were all in tears, and I had them. I was like, I have them.
I wanted to ask you, how did the whole thing about the animation and bringing to life his story and the protect. And you went to France to have it the animated, the French animators.
I was looking at, I always wanted to bring the last chapter in the book is the Owen wrote and created the sidekick story,
which was just lovely.
Yeah,
and really his drawing beautiful.
And his monsters that he creates all correspond to the challenges he has in his life. So I always wanted to bring that to life. And so I was looking at different types of animation, and I loved what the French were doing with 2D animation. So I went to this company, McGuff, in Paris, and the guy who runs it is this guy, Philippe, who spent 15 years living on a boat in the Seine, and he did Despicable Me, and he kind of is like the character in Despicable Me. And Philippe just fell in love with the story, and he does big, mostly 3D animation, big films, and he had sold his company to Universal, but kept a small group of animators in this little office next to the Eiffel Tower. It was all very magical, and he's like, I talked him into doing this, and he said, Roger, when people finish this film, they will pray to be autistic. And I loved that concept. I love that idea that people were that Owen is, maybe we're the ones on the outside. Maybe Owen's world. Owen exists on a higher plane. Owen is just, his world is so free. He's so free. Right. And it's so beautiful and creative. And maybe we're the ones. And I just love that concept. And he put together a team of just amazing young French animators. And we really, when working together with Skywalker Sound and our sound designer, El Nelson, we just created, all the music, the composition was this young kid, Dylan Stark, who was the same age as Owen, who's 23 years old, from Portland, Oregon. He's electronic music. All that music is Owen self-talking, the sound of VHS, fast-forwarding and rewinding.
Oh my God.
That Dylan created a musical composition.
Oh my God.
And so it was about taking all of the things in Owen's head and turning that into music. The sound design, for me, that's why this theater has great sound system, because the sound design was as important as the visual, so that by the time you're in the animated short, you're in this ethereal, you're in this world, you're deep into his mind and his reality and his world, and that was, to me, that was so exciting to create.
And Owen, I'm sure, just couldn't believe it when he saw it.
He was amazed the first time he saw it, and he actually hugged me, and Owen doesn't hug, and he hugged me and he said, "I love it." And he always says it's amazing to see his vision sort of come to life on the big screen.
Well, it certainly did, and he's just you did. I just thought this was really a terrific movie.
Well, thank you so much.
And I really appreciate you coming out today, and thank you guys for coming out
Thank
today.
you guys. Thank you.